Right, putting us live, but we're on the holding screen. Yeah. Oh shit. I need to mute my TV as well. Right, we're on. Great. Come on. Right, cool. We're good to go. So, moving us to intro.
Hi there, and welcome everybody who's watching on this immediate post-match reaction pod where Rangers have been defeated 2-0 against Liverpool away in Anfield in the Champions League. Today we've got Craig joining us. How are you doing today, Craig, after that?
I'm all right. It was a difficult watch at times, but 2-0, we're getting better each game, I guess. One goal less conceded than the game before, so it was a worldie free kick and a penalty. Other than that, we did quite well to keep the score down, I think. And yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to all the main talking points.
Yeah, didn't have you pegged as Mr. Optimism this evening, but there we go. And Dave, how are you getting on after that as well?
You're on mute, Dave.
And again, yeah, pretty much the same as Craig, to be honest. It's a hard watch at times, but I think we need to remember who we were playing here. You know, the greatest of respect, it's not sort of diddy teams, it's elite teams, and yeah, we are going to struggle as we saw, but yeah, overall it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Look, we'll just crack on straight into it then. Craig, we'll come to you first in terms of the lineup. There was some rumours circulating today on Twitter and social media and the likes that Rangers would go to a back five. That came true, I suppose. Rangers lined up with McGregor, Tav at right back. I think it was Davies on, sorry, was it King on the right? Or that three goals in the middle, Davies in the left, Barisic left back. Davis and Lundstrom as sitting midfielders, Tillman, Morelos, and Kent. Couple of surprise inclusions in there, maybe with Davies, Davis, and Tillman all being included in the squad tonight.
I'm not sure. I think Tillman's position might have been the only surprise for me, to be honest. I was expecting Ben Davies to start. I was actually surprised that Leon King was in there. I hadn't really. I thought he was more of a surprise than Davies was. Davis, I think, he's supposed to be composed on the ball, and he's supposed to be able to control possession, and he's supposed to be able to help control the tempo of the game. Don't think we really saw that from him tonight. He really helped us in the game against PSV, but this is a completely another level. And even for a man as experienced as him, he really struggled on the ball tonight. And then Matondo out right. I mean, you know that Matondo can't play out right of the front three. I know Matondo can't play out wide right of the front three. I just don't know why Gio doesn't know that Matondo can't play out right of the front three. Everyone in the granny would knew that was how Tillman would play. And again, it was just another massively underwhelming performance from Malik Tillman. But yeah, he needs to start showing up again.
Yeah, and look, Dave, but before we get into the actual game itself, just a word for the supporters down there. Throughout the game, I think I could hear them out singing the Liverpool supporters quite a lot, and our very own JB was in behind enemy lines. Don't know how we got on. I know that's a very, very difficult task to do, having been there a couple of times myself. But yeah, just a shout out for the support throughout the whole day, and even Nathan Patterson getting involved in the march towards Anfield was nice to see.
Yeah, it was really good showing from our fans, and I think you were right. I think there was a couple of occasions you could hear the home fans really belting it out, but other than that, for the main part, it was the Rangers fans you were hearing. Even on the TV, you know, they were saying the same thing, that they give a good account of themselves. I think more than anything, I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like in the return game, because, you know, bear in mind, if we can outsing them at their stadium, I'm pretty damn sure we can outsing them at Ibrox.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And we've already had English players coming out before, like Jude Bellingham. It'll be interesting to
Aye.
see what Liverpool make of how good the Ibrox atmosphere will be next week. Look, we'll go into the game now, Dave. I'll stick with you. It's just a wee observation I made in the sort of first 5 minutes. Liverpool. I think I'll caveat this whole podcast with we all three of us know how the difference in class that
Aye.
there was a huge gulf there in terms of what was going on. With that caveat, we'll go and try and analyse the game that way. But it was pretty evident to me in the first 5 minutes. Could see quite a lot of balls going over the top. It looked like Liverpool were trying to find space in behind the back. You can see they're running. Do you think that was something that Liverpool had worked on prior to the game, Dave?
Yeah, I reckon so. Just the frequency that it was happening with, to be honest. I think definitely you could see him running the channels well, balls over the top. And if I'm being honest, I think we looked a wee bit shell shocked that kind of first 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, understandable. As you say, it's a real step up from where we have been, but I think they definitely worked on that in advance.
Yeah, and Craig, look, the next action point to talk about is 7 minutes. Ben Davies gives away a free kick on the edge of the box, and I don't know. There's not much to be said about this. It's an absolute worldie of a free kick. It's right in the postage stamp. McGregor nearly got to it. That's probably the best thing I can say about it. Other than not giving the free kick away, there's not really much Rangers could have done for this, is there?
Yeah, I'm just before I move on to the goal and the free kick, just touch on the point you made to Dave there. I think Liverpool naturally target the wide areas anyway. I think they set up with Salah coming in from the right and Luis Diaz coming in from the left. And the number of goals that we see it every week on Match of the Day and watching the English Premier League, that number of goals they score by cutting in and curling it into the far post is unreal, and that they're absolute masters at it. We saw it a few times tonight, and I think that I think they would have easily identified Borna Barisic as a weakness in our team. He seemed to stand off his man so far, almost inviting him to do whatever he wanted. He stood off him so far. We saw it in the other Champions League games that we've played so far this season as well. And I don't understand why he's not made an adjustment between those games and this game. But we saw it yet again, and Mo Salah could run at him for fun. I think Luis Diaz Tavernier did a bit better down that side. He was getting tighter to him at least, but Diaz is so good with the ball at his feet, and he can get through the tightest of spaces and still have possession of the ball. So I think I can understand why they targeted those areas. But in terms of the goal, it's a bit of a cheap free kick to give away, to be honest. But I think you see 10 of those a game, really. I don't think we can put too much blame at the door of Ben Davies. And like you say, it's an absolute worldie of a free kick. Saw some suggestions that potentially Alan McGregor was one step too far to the goalkeeper's left hand side, but I don't think you can take anything away from the goal itself. He put it exactly where he had to. The way he got the ball up and down over the wall, Leon, it went right over Leon King's head, but Leon King jumped as tall as he could possibly do in that situation, and I think you just have to hold your hands up to it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's just one of these things you've just got to say it was a good goal, and there's nothing that Rangers could have done about it. Look, sort of the next sort of phases of play we had, I noticed for the first sort of 20 minutes, I thought this was quite interesting when Rangers had the ball in the sort of final third of their half. In the 18-yard box, Liverpool didn't do any pressing. They just let us play out, and then as soon as we got past that sort of 18-yard line, that's when they really pushed. There was the first of I don't know, Dave. What would you say in terms of McGregor tonight? I thought this was the first in terms of quite a few routine saves. He had a few other good ones in there, but maybe a word on McGregor and him and how he performed tonight.
I thought he was excellent. I think so. There was some genuinely class saves in there, and I take your point that some of them were very kind of run of the mill. You would expect it, but I think it's a case of you'd expect it from him. I noticed in the comments someone at the start said, if that was McLaughlin, would he have made those same saves? I'm not convinced he would. I think he'd have made some of them, yeah, but I'm not convinced he'd have made all of them, and it could have been an awful lot worse. So I think we have to acknowledge in reality McGregor saved us from a real doing tonight, I would say.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's kept the scoreline respectable for the most part. And I'll stick with you in this, Dave. And again, I don't know if you can cast your mind back to the sort of first 20 minutes of that first half. And it was really the only chance I think of note that Rangers had in terms of an attacking spell in that. There was a couple of good moments. Morelos was very strong in the middle of the park. I thought from that point we were going to see a wee bit more of that. It was going to kick on, but that didn't seem to come to fruition. And a decent bit of skill from Kent, where he won a free kick. Ryan Kent, this was his first involvement in the game, but were you ultimately disappointed that even the free kick from Tav, it didn't even go over the wall? It just seemed to hit the first man.
Yeah, absolutely. I said on the sort of preview of this one, chances are going to be few and far between, and when you do get them, you need to bury them. Now, unfortunately, I said put Cholak on, he'll probably score it. We saw what happened. Unfortunately, he didn't. But no, we seemed, as I said, shell shocked, and then when we did get the ball, there was no composure. There was no kind of, at times you've seen some incisiveness from us this season. A lot of the time you haven't, but we almost seemed scared of the ball at times, I thought, and we just weren't. Even when we did get in a promising position, we wasted the opportunity far too often.
Yeah, that's it. And Craig, I'll be interested to get your reaction for this next point that I'm about to make. But I actually thought at times some of our defending was actually okay. I think we coped okay at times with things. I'd be dead interested to get your thoughts on how you felt for that first half hour, that sort of back five effectively lined up, that combination of King, Goldson and Davies.
I think organisationally we were pretty good. I mean, the gulf in class that you see with teams, especially like Liverpool and Napoli and even Ajax, we saw that actually their forward players are where that gulf in class is really seen, and that's where teams like Liverpool spend big money, because they need the quality in those final areas to keep them consistent and consistently challenging for league titles and consistently challenging for European titles as well. And I think we saw exactly that tonight with their movement. We looked a wee bit confused by their movement in the first 10, 15 minutes, and then I felt like we got to grips with it a wee bit. But even when you get to grips with it, they still managed to find their way through almost at will. And I don't think we can blame the defence for that. I thought Connor Goldson was absolutely immense tonight. To be honest, I thought he was absolutely tremendous. They mentioned in commentary about he had a tough task because he was trying to marshal Ben Davies through the game, which I thought was a bit harsh. He's an experienced player, but also having a wee young King there on that occasion, who is obviously an 18-year-old and will need kind of coached a wee bit through the game, although again probably still a wee bit harsh because he's a good player in his own right. But I thought defensively we set up well. We covered a wee bit about the fullbacks earlier on. I think where we struggled was not having an outball, and we kind of saw in the last 20 minutes or so where that outball came from. Ryan Kent got the ball a couple of times, and I actually thought he did what we wanted Ryan Kent to do when he's on the ball, and he was keeping possession, and he wasn't losing the ball really. He was running at defenders a wee bit, cutting inside and playing a decent pass. But he didn't do it often enough, and he wasn't getting on the ball often enough. Morelos was winning challenges, but then giving the ball away or kicking it out for a throw in, and it was backs against the wall, and we didn't have that out ball. And I think that's where the defence really struggled, because when the ball's just coming back at you every single time, and players of that quality, they're going to get through and they're going to create chances, and that's what we saw. But like Dave, Al McGregor had a great game for us. He had some absolute world-class saves. I'm sure we'll come on to the one in the second half from Diaz, but he had some world-class saves, and he made quite a few routine ones as well that we'd expect him to make, but they were very much needed as well.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. I said I'm glad you mentioned Kent in there, because he's maybe the next sort of last talking point of the first half, so to speak. Was It was a good wee bit of passing up until this point from Rangers again. It was one of the only few sort of sequences of passing play that we had around about the 36-minute mark. Kent sort of runs into the wing. Trent Alexander and Henderson deal with it quite well, and the ball gets cleared, which ends up in Lundstrom having to carry out a professional foul and getting a yellow card. Dave, what was your overall thoughts and just this sort of, as Craig's touched on, a complete lack of a focal point up front? How do you think it was the system? Do you think the players needed to do better in this instance?
I think when you play the way we did, and especially with Tillman in there, you're very, very reliant on your fullbacks pushing on a bit at the right times, obviously, but you need them to push on and do a bit more. I'll be honest, I don't want to slate the guy, but I thought Tav was pretty poor tonight. Barisic, he looked a little bit short of confidence, if anything. I think maybe with Salah kind of coming at him, and as Craig touched upon, it was just wave after wave. There's a couple of times, even when he did get forward, that he didn't necessarily whip it in like we know he can. He just kind of tried to play the soft pass, and I think that hurt us. I think Tillman, I'm a great fan of Tillman, but I think flat out was kind of the wrong option. So in essence, you're relying on Morelos holding it up, but he didn't have the stuff around him. And I think there was one point, it was in the first half, you saw Kent manage to get a hold of the ball and tried to drive forward, and there was absolutely no one for him to pass to. And he just ended up running into traffic, losing the ball, and it came back at us again. So yeah, I'm quite torn because I thought Cholak should play just because of the way he was scoring. I said, he's the one that you'd want to take the chance. But I did acknowledge that, if you are looking for someone that's going to hold the ball up and be that focal point, that would be Morelos. And it just wasn't coming off tonight.
Yeah, that's it exactly. It was a real difficult one. Look, Craig, I've almost ripped through the paper when I've been writing this down in my notes here, and it's in big capital letters, and it's just after the first half, I was talking to who I was watching the game with, and I couldn't figure out what the game plan was. Like, what was the intent? What was Gio's thinking? I understand it couldn't have just been contain them and hit them in the counter attack. Do you think we had a game plan, and were you disappointed that we didn't have a go, given how Brighton at the weekend exploited the sort of Liverpool defensive frailties? Now, I don't think we've got as good a squad or a team as Brighton, which is crazy saying that given that we're in the Champions League. But were you disappointed to see us not having a go in that first half?
I think having a go would have been absolute suicide. I think we saw how many chances they created when we weren't having a go, never mind if we were wide open at the back. I tried to think, I said at half time, it was painful watching yet again that first half, and it was like the situation where I was like, please just give us the money for the Champions League and just leave us alone. We just that was at the point I'd reached in the first half. Just that, and I'm still a wee bit in that kind of mindset, and I don't think we could have had a tougher group, to be honest, on this one. And I think this is the first time where the real gulf in quality between the rest of the sides and us has come to the fore. Am I disappointed, or was there a game plan? I think there was a game plan, but it immediately goes out the window when you lose a midfield battle. I don't think Lundstrom and Davis got on the ball at all, really. Davis had a couple of attempts at sort of spreading the ball wide, and he just knocked it straight out of the park. For a man of his experience and for a man of his quality, you would have expected much more composure on the ball, but I think that was partly as well due to Liverpool's press and us not being able to find the space to offer options to him. So I think he was trying to some of the more difficult passes that they potentially wouldn't normally play. John Lundstrom, I think, was completely off it tonight. I don't know. He's not managed to find his second half of the season form from last year yet, and I'm not going to rule him out. Don't worry. I just saw from your face. Where's he going with this one? But I'm still a fan of John Lundstrom. I just think think Champions League's probably above. To be fair, for most of our squad, if not all of our squad, Champions League is beyond the level that we have of player quality, and I think that was shown again tonight.
Yeah, again, I completely agree with you on that one. I think the only player that maybe is of Champions League quality is perhaps McGregor at 40 years old, which is absolutely, again, insane saying that. Look, Dave, Rangers get in at half-time. I'll try and take a wee bit of Craig's positivity and say that it was only 1-0 and it was conceded from a free kick. I'd just like to get your thoughts on... Craig touched on Steve Davis. For me, that is the oldest that he's ever looked in a Rangers shirt tonight. That is the first time I've thought that's a 37-year-old midfielder playing for us. Another player of note that I seem to get quite a lot of criticism on the socials and stuff like that was Malik Tillman. What were your thoughts on Tillman in particular and that sort of first?
I thought Tillman looked lost, if I'm being truthful. I'm not entirely sure what role he'd been asked to play. I'm not sure if he was meant to slot in behind Morelos or if he was meant to be out on the right, but he just looked lost. He was struggling to keep up with the pace of the game. He wasn't really tracking back. I think Malik Tillman's a good player, but he's very much a development player. He's not there yet, and I was honestly gobsmacked when I saw his name on the team sheet, if I'm being honest. I think even beforehand, I wouldn't have pegged him. I actually thought we'd go a bit more defensive midfield-wise, but even if we played with someone on the right or a number 10, I would have probably expected to see Arfield in this sort of game ahead of Tillman. So for him to come in from the cold, so to speak, for this was a shock, and I don't think he handled it too well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, and I'll stick with you in this, Dave. The next action point, and after the second half's began, around about 52 minutes, Diaz is breaking into the Rangers box. It's excellent feat for me. A wee bit of a clumsy challenge by King. I wasn't going to say this, but I'll admit it live in the podcast. Was my previous note before that was great tackle by King and Jota. Thoughts on how 18-year-old Leon King is coping at this type of in this type of game and atmosphere.
So it's your fault. That's what you're saying, Carl.
You know what? I'll take the blame for it. But listen, for me, no arguments. It was a stonewall penalty, wasn't it, Dave?
100%. I said in the group chat, I'd love to be able to sit here and say no chance, but he just can't. As you say, great feat. Possibly a wee bit naive from King, but it doesn't take away from the way the boy was moving. It's very much what Aribo gave us, but more so. It's a level above that, if that makes sense. But he wasn't losing that ball driving in.
That's it. And Craig, I'll be interested to get your thoughts on young Leon King as well. Given other than the penalty, how do you think he coped in that sort of environment?
Yeah, I think he did okay. I believe that I've just seen some comments from Gio in his post-match, and he singled out Alan McGregor and Leon King for their performances. So Gio is obviously happy with it. I think he did well against players of that quality. He looked fairly comfortable on the ball. When he had it at his feet, he was just trying to go out to Tavernier all the time. I thought it was actually quite telling that at kick-off at the start of the game, Kent took kick-off and it went straight to Leon King.
Yeah.
To play it long and out wide, which I thought was really telling actually for his first Champions League game, his first game at that level, that go straight to him from kick-off, and it's down to him to start off our game and our attack kind of thing. So I thought that was really interesting. I think overall he did well. Penalty-wise was a bit naive. I actually was worried that it was John Lundstrom that gave away the penalty, because I think Lundstrom catches him first before Leon King does, and I was worried that was going to be a red card for Lundstrom because he was already booked at that point. But yeah, I think it was a penalty. There was no arguing with that. And like I said at the start, we lost 2-0 to a worldie free kick and a penalty. They created a lot more chances, but we stood up to the task. I think there's a comment in there from RFC 55 and counting. He said outplayed, outclassed, and without McGregor it could easily have been the double figures. But we did have Alan McGregor, so ultimately Alan McGregor was a key part of our performance tonight. And I don't think we can I don't think we can underplay how well he played. And yeah, if you give me 2-0 at the start of the game, would have taken it probably.
Yeah, again, it's not something I stress that we say lightly as Rangers fans saying that, because I don't want you getting comments here, Craig. All right, but listen, we'll stick with that. Again, I know we've sort of touched on McGregor. I'll stick with you, Craig, seeing as Dave's already talked about it a wee bit. Next action point on 60 minutes. This for me was the absolute pick of the bunch of the saves. This is the sort of, maybe not quite Sparta Prague level, but it was certainly up there in terms of his. Jota's had a fantastic shot. He must have had milliseconds to react to it, and McGregor's just tipped it around the post. It's a very good save, but almost routine in terms of what we've come to expect McGregor to do on the European stage.
Absolutely, it was phenomenal reactions. It's one of those ones when you first watch it doesn't look like he's touched it at all. And I think he was very much up for saying he hadn't touched it, so we got the goal kick, which you do see quite a lot from Alan McGregor when he's pulled off an amazing save, that he's quite happy to not take the credit and make sure that we've got possession kind of thing. But yeah, it was an incredible save, and there was no doubt the ball was hitting the back of the net without it.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And Dave, sort of the next couple of points to come on to was 66 minutes. They previously talked about Davis and Tillman came off for Jack and surprisingly enough, Fashion Sakala. I was very surprised when I saw it on. I think these are all, there's not as much discussion. They were sensible substitutes to make. And then in the 73-minute mark, Morelos was substituted off for Antonio Cholak. What did you think of Morelos' contribution tonight, given that it was a very, very difficult role to play, that sort of lone striker, and the complete lack of service from the wide men? What was your thoughts on him tonight?
Thanks for the easy question, Carl. It's so hard to say. I mean, just looking at it singly, obviously he didn't offer much, but you have to take into context the team that we're playing. I just don't think you can ignore that. So yeah, he was struggling. I thought he could have maybe put himself a wee bit more than what he did. I think, sort of backing into them, they are sticking out that we know he can do to try and hold up play. I think sometimes he wasn't, but again, it's so hard to criticise the guy when you look at the defence that he's up against. It really is.
Yeah, and then the next lot of substitutions around the 80-minute mark, Kent comes off for Matondo and Ben Davies comes off for Kamara. Again, to sort of touch on a point that you made earlier, Craig, I thought it was very interesting that Gio took Davies off and left King on. I think that shows you how much trust he's got in him. But what did you think, Dave, we'll come on to the Matondo chance later, but the last sort of 15 minutes of that game, Rangers seemed to be a lot more positive. I've seen it. People were a lot more encouraged by the attitude that the new front three had. They seemed to be a lot more at it. Do you think it was that there was just a better attitude, or do you think it was just the fact that it was coming towards the end of the game, and Liverpool were tiring or just taking the foot off the gas because we'd created nothing up until this point and it was 2-0?
I think it's a bit of both of them, being honest with you. I think, yes, Liverpool probably did ease up a bit. I think by that point, they knew the game was comfortable. They'd put it to bed. But I mean, I made that wee comment in the group chat, and I stand by it. I saw more from Matondo in the time he was on the pitch on the left than what I did from the 80 minutes of Kent. I know Kent ran about. I know he had a couple of runs that were okay, but Matondo just seemed to offer something else. And I think there's almost a fear amongst supporters because Kent cost us 7 million. He has to play. I don't buy that. Regardless of his fee, he's not offering as much as what he did in, say, the 55 season. Even last year in the European games, you saw the real kind of talent that we know Kent has, and I'm just not seeing it. And I actually think a spell on the bench might do him good. As far as the other subs go, it's a hard one. I mean, Cholak did well when he came on, but again, very tough. I think he had one real clear chance that he managed to stop. It was stopped, so you kind of really judge him on a limited time. But for me, the big kind of shining point was what Matondo offered us on the left. And I think someone said as well, like his previous time he's played for us on the left, he's also done really well. And I actually think, is it time maybe we do give him a chance on the left? I know he was signed as a right winger, but I think we can all agree that actually he's not that great on the right wing so far. Whereas, he is putting in the performances when he gets a chance on the left.
Yeah, again, I think it's hard to disagree with what you said there. And Craig, look, that just brings us on to the next point. The sort of last action point of the game, I would say, is in 84 minutes with Tondo, with what I would say was arguably Rangers' most dangerous chance of the game. It was an excellent run, and to get the ball sort of kind of reminded me a wee bit of the Cholak finish against Gordon for his was it second goal against Hearts, where he just sort of hit that sweet spot where it wasn't quite along the ground and it wasn't quite above the keeper's head. It was just right in the middle. And is it Chimikas? Fantastic clearance. But again, what did you think of that chance and the sort of overall impact of the subs? Was it due to the fact that, it was tiring? I understand there was, I think this is maybe a key point that's not been mentioned yet, was the fact that we had an extra man in the middle of the park effectively by going from a 5 to a 4 at the back. Was it that, or do you just think the attitude of these players was better when they came on?
I think I don't think anyone can question that we were much better in that last 15 minutes than we had been the rest of the game. I think actually Sebastian Sakala came on, and I don't think I've seen him since the Queen of the South game. I think I've seen him take to the park since the Queen of the South game, so that was a surprise. But Gio obviously knew, and I would probably give them a bit of credit of him and Dave Voss, that they probably recognised that actually a bit of pace is what was needed, and it absolutely helped. Sebastian Sakala, first time he came on, he was taking the ball in, he was playing a few passes, he cut inside and took a shot at goal, and you're like, where's this been for the past 75 minutes?
Right.
And then Matondo came on, and again, like Dave says, on the left-hand side, he just seems a completely different player. I think real questions have to be asked as to why does Ryan Kent automatically start, especially when he's not in form. Should we, I think in the past we've probably tried to play him into form in games and almost given him the time to just get out of that rut, but I'm not sure we can afford to do that this season, to be honest. And his dip in form has continued for quite a long time, so I'd very much be up for giving Matondo a chance. And we saw the 1-2 he played to get him free down the wing, and then his pace to just take Joel Matip out of the game completely was phenomenal. And then like you say, he's done well. He shot, I don't think I saw the reverse angle replay, and I don't think it was actually going in. But it was the first real threat we had to go, and then again from, I think it was the corner afterwards, Cholak's opportunity that Alisson just does well to save with his left thigh or whatever. And then again, we bit 4 or 5 minutes later, Matondo again running down the left. He plays the ball inside to Cholak at the edge of the box, and Cholak just takes a couple of seconds too long, or else he was getting a shot away. And I'd put my money on that being on target, at least, if not in the back of the net, if Cholak makes contact with the ball. So it was much more promising. I think it makes next week's lineup at Ibrox really interesting, is to see if we start with pace down the wings, or we might see some sort of balance in that one of Matondo or Sakala will start and the other will be on the bench. I'm not entirely convinced that both will start next week, but I think it'll be really interesting. And again, we'll be back to the Cholak or Morelos discussion again. I think that's going to be the eternal discussion
Season, isn't it?
Yeah, for this season. It was McGregor or McLaughlin last season, and it'll be Cholak or Morelos this season. I thought Morelos did okay. I don't think he's the kind of, normally he can occupy 2 centre halves at the same time, but I think he didn't get any service at all in this whole game. He did really well with one in the first half that he brought it down. I think he's probably surprised himself with his first touch. And then he passed out wide. But outside of that, he didn't really have much to go on at all. And I actually thought Cholak went to play better when he came on than Morelos had been doing. Again, you don't know how much of that is Liverpool taking a step off. 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. Are they taking a step back and going, game's won, we'll just see it out? And that gives us a wee bit more space. So there's quite a lot to think about and discuss ahead of the game next week. But it was very much more promising. I was just hoping we scored a goal. I think that's the stage of this Champions League group stage that I'm at now. Just if we can score a goal, then at least we get that monkey off our back as such. Never mind getting a point in the group. So that's where I'm at. Hopeful ahead of next week that we've potentially found something a wee bit extra that we can be a bit more threatening than we were tonight.
Yeah, that's that exactly. I think there's a lot to digest in what you said there, but it'll be interesting to see how we line up next week. That brings me on to that question nicely, Dave. Given the the performance of the front three, what would you do against Liverpool next week? Would you go and would you start Sakala and Cholak and Matondo, or do you think Gio's going to play it a bit more safer and go with the tried and trusted and have Kent back on the left?
I don't think he'll start Sakala. I thought Sakala was good when he came on, but I just can't see him starting him. At least we don't have to worry about Scott Rightful. That's my main thing. I've got a feeling Kent will still play. I think if anything, Gio will put Kent on the left and try and put Matondo on the right, which, as I've said, I don't think works, but it just sort of seems to me the sort of thing Gio would do. Cholak Morelos, there's probably an argument to give Cholak a shot. I mean, we've given Morelos a shot. It didn't work. We banked on his hold-up play, being able to get us up the pitch. It didn't happen, so clearly we need to try something different. So we may well see, I think, Cholak, Kent, and then Matondo on the right.
Yeah, that's it. Look, there's not really much else to say about the game. I think that's about it, to be honest.
Kyle, I think one point I'd like to make is just point out the Napoli score tonight, which I think surprised everyone. We put up a good performance against Napoli just 3 weeks ago now at home, and it was a game that was nothing each, and we were competitive in for 60 minutes until James Sands gets sent off and get that sort of the penalty or two penalties, should we say, were given away. But Napoli beat Ajax 6-1 tonight, and it was 4-1 after 63 minutes. And that was before Ajax went down to 10 men. So I think that's just an example of the quality that we're up against in this group. We were absolutely dismantled by Ajax away from home, and Napoli have done the exact same to Liverpool and to Ajax. And actually, we've probably given Napoli the best game so far out of the three. So I think we do need to put everything into perspective and to highlight that level of quality that is in our group. We've not got a team of a vaguely similar level. I know the team across our side of the city, I might as well name them. Celtic have got a team like Shakhtar in their group, who are much closer to Scottish football standard than anyone we've got, and I think we do need to remember that when we're analysing performances.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why every sort of post-match reaction I've done, I've caveated it at the start with I realise how good the opposition that we're playing here, but yeah, I suppose it does kind of put that result against Napoli in a perspective, and I don't think anybody was expecting to win the group. Or I think we were very at best hoping for third place and to go into the sort of latter rounds of the Europa League, but with what was it, a -9 goals and 0 goals scored and 0 points, it is looking like it's not going to. Doubtful that we'll get that, but you never know. There's still 3 games to play. Stranger things have happened. But listen, I just want to thank the two guys for joining us. So thanks, Craig, and thanks, Dave, and what's been quite another difficult post-match chat to do. Just want to say thanks to everybody for watching and tuning in. There'll be a bulletin on Friday. We will do our normal Sunday bulletin as well. I think I'm hosting that one, so I'll see you all on Sunday. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll look forward to the Rangers game at the weekend. So thanks everybody.